What's up, traders? Anthony Crudele here, and welcome back to 10-Minute Technicals. In today's video, we're going to go over volume profile, but not volume profile like many of you are probably used to seeing it. I'm using the net delta in the volume profile. What does that mean? Well, most people, when they look at volume profile, it'll just be the total volume, and you'll see it. It looks, like a bell curve. You're going to see the area in the belly where all that volume is made, and you'll see it on the edges where there's light volume. I look at the net delta volume bars. And the reason why I look at that is because I want to see when we get near the highs or near the lows, was there a lot of buyers in the highs that we couldn't advance? Was there a lot of sellers on the lows that we couldn't advance? Was there buyers at a certain point in the market where all of a sudden the market took off from and maybe the buyers defended? Were there sellers at a certain point that they're going to go back and defend? And so I want to see the net delta because when the market moves through price, it's always important for me to see, was somebody coming in and really dominating an area, or was it just choppy, right? And a lot of times when a market area is dominated, a market participants will protect it, right? In an area that's choppy or low volume, will end up coming back down there and it'll be very similar in action, right? And so it helps you understand when the market gets back to a certain area that maybe is of interest of you, like a support area or moving average or VWAP or something, that you have an idea of what took place there and how the market may respond when it gets there. So that's the way I look at it, right? And there's so many great volume profile traders out there that really dive deep in a volume profile that are really great follows. This is just my one unique way of looking at it that helps me as a trader, and hopefully it'll help you today. So let's take this in its continuation of what I've been doing here in this series that we're talking about with market environment. Talked about Bollinger Bands in the first video, how to identify market environment, 20 period, 3 standard deviation. That's what you see here. We're in a daily chart on GoCharting using the E-mini S&P 500, just candlestick charts. Then we added Beacon, my free indicator to understand mean reversion moves. Simple, right? Added moving averages. I'm using the 8-day simple moving average, and I anchored a VWAP. I anchored this VWAP to this point right here because that's where my beacon signal came in. I talked about in the previous video using an anchored VWAP. It really depends on you, right? I mean, where you want to anchor it. Where's a point of interest that you think is important? What happened in the market that you want to anchor a VWAP to see what the market proves to you from that point? And so that's what we did there. And so that's why that VWAP is anchored there, because I believe this was a turning point for the market where the market actually believed that that low was going to be a good low, and the market started to build on it. And so a lot of that information we get after that, it's going to be extremely important. And so now we're going to add volume profile into this. And I talked about using the net delta. And the reason that's why this volume profile looks like this, because it's just the net delta of what you see on the chart. So if I were to expand the chart out further, it would just show more net delta. And so we're just going back, a little over a month or so I could see the net delta of what's happened. It was obviously a busy past 4 or 5 weeks. So it's all I really need to see. And what is interesting to me, what sticks out to me and maybe sticking out to you as well, is that when you look at the chart, you could see in this range right here is a huge amount of buying, right? And you go back and look at this one bar, and that's why I had it highlighted. And you look to see what happened recently in this past week, where the market came back down and went and tested that volume weighted average price that I talked about. And it dipped right into the bar, this bar right here, right? And when you look at it, look at the volume here. Almost all, well, not almost all of it's to the buy side. And it's pretty heavy volume to the buy side. So this bar right here was a big day of buying. Big, big, big day. And so what's interesting is that the buyers defended it, and you could see we rallied back up, and who knows what happens after I record this. But nonetheless, this zone is an important area of interest. It's something to watch, right? And it's one of those things where you look at context and nuance, as many of my mentors have taught me. Look at the situations. Does it matter to you, right? Like if my support was lower or higher, I'd still take interest and note of this, but nonetheless, it's really right on the VWAP that I had anchored. Okay. And really the bottom of that volume is right around my neutral area. So I know this zone roughly in S&P, let's call it 55.70 to 54.85, 90-ish, right? Is a big area where buyers were coming in. So if we were to cross below that, you could see us go right back to the bottom of that range, because maybe these buyers all of a sudden start to give up, right? And we get below there, maybe it gets choppy and loose again, who knows? But, and also something that I noticed is look on the recent high. A lot of buyers up there got tagged on that high, trying to buy it into new highs, couldn't. Look at the sellers on the low. So you got trapped longs on the high and trapped sellers on the bottom, right? And so we'll see what happens when we get up here. Maybe we find some resistance because these people that have been long are like, maybe I want to be a seller here now. You got a new beacon level that comes in at 56.91. And so that's why I use net delta on the volume profile to give me context and nuance at my areas that I'm looking for at my support and resistance levels, so I can anticipate how the market may react. Doesn't mean I'm going to get the reaction I want, but if I do get the reaction I want, that helps me. If it gets up there and it's just like, wow, they're not defending this, then it just doesn't matter. But this is why you do homework. It's why you add things. And I go back to it over the past 4 videos. I've added all things that are not redundant. This is extremely important. Moving average has its role. Anchored VWAP has its role. Beacon has its role. Volume profile has its role. Bollinger Bands have their role. I don't have redundancy in my indicators, and that is extremely important when you're building a strategy and overall understanding market environment. It's always important for me not to complicate things and have each indicator just giving me one indication, not giving me multiple momentum indicators or all these moving averages or all of these VWAPs on there. And I'm looking around going, what do I even do with all this, right? It's too much information. So once again, hopefully this video helped you understand volume profile in maybe a way that you didn't, and maybe it's a way you could use it in your strategy.